Welcome back to Learnoikonomia. In this video, we'll be discussing the Kinked demand curve. Kinked demand curve is actually found in oligopoly model. So we will be discussing the concept in detail in this video. So moving to the assumptions of the Kinked demand curve, so initially we are very much concerned about the oligopolistic market. So as a result, we assume that there are only a few firms in an oligopolistic market, and the existing firms, I mean the firms that exist in the oligopolistic market, are producing close substitute products. So the quality of the products which are produced by the oligopolistic market firms are considered to remain constant, and also the firms are considered not to spend upon advertisement. Then we assume that a set of prices of the product has already been determined and these prices prevail in the market at present. Then we also assume that each firm believes that if it reduces the price of its products, what happens is that rival firms would also follow the suit. But if it increases the price, what happens is that the rivals won't follow it. As a result, they would simply keep their prices unchanged. So having understood the assumptions of the model, or having kept in mind the assumptions of the model, let's discuss the model in detail. If you look at the figure, you can see that the demand curves are two demand curves are drawn, and you could, from the figure itself, you could see that the elasticity of the two demand curves are different. Okay, so the first demand curve is DD, that is small letter dd, and the second one is dd, which is capital DD. Okay, so if you look at the figure itself, you will be able to understand that out of these two curves, small dd is more flat than the capital D. So when one particular firm in the industry changes the price of its products, what happens is that all the other firms keeping their prices constant. The firm's demand curve will be relatively flatter, which is indicated by small letter dd, and that is the magnitude of the change in the demand for its product as its price changes would be relatively larger, which is explained by the small letter dd demand curve. Okay, now coming to the next case, that is the case of the capital DD. We will discuss that, and before that, let's understand why this small letter dd is in this form, which is indicated in the figure. So this is mainly because of the firm reduces or increases the price of the product. The price of the products of so we have to assume that the price of the other firms are in constant form, so that the product of the firm in the question becomes relatively cheaper or dearer respectively, so that compared to the products of the other firms. So this is the main indication of the relatively flatter demand curve. Now coming to the case of capital DD, here we could say that if a particular firm in the industry changes the price of its products, and following this, all the other firms would also change their prices in the same direction. For example, we can say that they may be changing their price in the same proportion for a, so just assume so. This is just for the sake of simplicity. So then what happens is that the firm's demand curve would be relatively steeper, and which is indicated by capital. Okay. And this is basically because in this case, as the firm decreases or increases the price, its product does not become neither relatively cheaper nor dearer. So we could say that now the demand curve would be less elastic or more steep than the small letter dd, which is shown by the capital letter dd, capital DD demand curve. Now you can suppose that initially the price of the product of the firm is just P1, and or you could say that it's OP1, and the demand for the product as a result of OP1 price is Q1 or OQ1. So if the firm now increases its price from P1, the rival firms would keep their prices unchanged as per the assumption 5 of this model, because we have already told that if one firm increases its price, the others won't follow, but if one firm decreases its price, other firms would. Now, in this case, a firm's demand curve actually would decrease along the segment RD of the relatively more elastic demand curve, which is small letter dd. On the other hand, you could see that if it goes on decreasing its price from P1, its rivals won't be decreasing their prices according to assumption 5, because going on decreasing the price of the product would actually reduces the profit of the firms, whether it is undertaken by the main firm or it is undertaken by the follower firm. So in this case, the quantity demanded of the firm's product will increase along the line segment RD of the relatively steeper demand curve, which is capital DD. So therefore what happens is that at price P1, the firm's demand curve would be DRD, that is small letter d R capital letter T. So obviously this is all because of the assumption 5, and the segment DR of this demand curve would be relatively flat or more elastic than the segment RD. RD means capital, DR capital, and D capital. So as a result, there would be a kink at the prevailing price P1 or at the point R on the demand curve RD, DRD. When I say DRD, it means that small letter d R and capital letter D. So the demand curve in this model would be a kinked demand curve. It would be having a kink at the point which is indicated by the indicator R. So however, we have to understand that the reaction pattern of the rival as given by the assumption 5 is able to explain why the price won't tend to change. So or else we could say that why would be there the sticky price in the oligopolistic market. So if you take an example and if you look at the figure here, you could see that the firm's quantity sold increases from Q1 to Q2. It would be inclined to the change in the assumption regarding the reaction pattern of the rivals for the consumption about the rivals' decision is no means dependent on its quantity sold. Okay, so therefore it would regard this increase in the quantity sold or an increase in the demand for this product as caused by a rightward shift in the demand curve, or you could say that it would think that its demand curve has shifted to the right from DRD to DR-T double. Okay, so although the demand curve has shifted to the right, it has kept the price of its product unchanged, resulting not necessarily in the unfulfillment of the profit maximization goal. We know that the main motive of firm, whether it is in perfect competition or it is in oligopoly or monopolistic competition, the main goal of the firm would be profit maximization. Okay, but in the figure 14.20 we could see that we have assumed that the two curves, that is the one which is more elastic and one which is less elastic, and the MC curve, that is a marginal cost curve, passes all through the discontinuity range of the MR2. MR2 means the marginal revenue curve to or you could see that which is equal to the demand curve, that is DR-D double dash. Therefore, the firm is able to maximize its profit at the price P1. Now, in this model, we could see that the firm may not have to change its price of the product even if its cost of production increases. For example, let's suppose that initially the firm's AR curve, that is average revenue curve, and MR curve are D dash and MR1, and the MC is the MC curve, that is the marginal cost curve. In this case, what happens is that the firm's profit would be maximized if it sells Q1 output at P1 price. Okay, so now what happens is that the firm's cost position changes resulted in an upward shift in the MC curve from MC1 to MC2. That means that there is an increase in the price, that is increase in the marginal cost of the firm. Then what happens is that if the MC2 curve also like MC1 passes through the discontinuity range of the MR curve, then the firm would not have to change the price of the product if its main aim is to maximize profit. So what happens is that it would be able to maximize profit if it, like the previous case, sells the output at price P1. Okay, now the cost of production rises along the shift in the demand curve, then also the profit maximization may not require the firm to change the price of its product. For example, let's suppose that the firm's AR, MR and MC curves respectively are DR-D dash, MR and MC1. In this case, the firm's profit maximization output combination would be P1 Q1. Okay, now if the firm's MC curve rises to MC2 along the rightward shift in the demand curve to D R dash D dash D double dash, then what happens is that here also the firm would not be required to change the price of its product if the MC2 curve passes through both the discontinuities Mn and M1 N1 of the DR D dash and DR dash D double dash curves. So it would still be able to earn the profit, maximum profit at price P1, but now its quantity of output produced and sold would be Q2. So what happens is that now the firm's price output combination would be obtained at point R dash not R, so that the new combination would be P1 Q2. P1 is the price and Q2 is quantity. This assumption actually states that if a particular firm increases the price of the product, what happens is that its rivals will not increase their prices, but if it reduces the price, they will definitely try to reduce their prices, because they know that if one firm reduces the price, all the customers will go to that firm, so the other firms will be using their customers. That's the main reason behind these kinds of results. And we have seen that because of all these kinds of reactions, the demand curve of each oligopolistic firm will be kinked, and the MR curve of the demand curve will have two separate segments, and there will be a vertical gap in between them. And it's also important to note that it's not that the firm's goal of profit maximization can never be achieved because of the existence of a vertical gap. And even when the firm's demand curve increases, for demand increases, that means when the demand increases means the demand curve will shift to the right, and or its MC curve would shift upwards. So in this case, it's impossible for the firm to achieve profit maximization at the prevailing price. So therefore, although the King demand curve model cannot explain the process of price determination, it will well explain the price stickiness in the oligopolistic market. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe this channel for more videos.